everybody. Welcome to the show. That is Mike Fuji up top. I am Al Norfleet, and together we are at the 50 with Fuji and Fleet. And today we're talking about the upcoming NFC Wildcard game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. And to help us, the Green Bay Packers fan podcast is Mr. Scott Lindsay. How are you, Scott?
How you
I'm
doing,
doing
Scott?
I'm doing all right, guys. Thank you very much. Actually, Lindsay, believe it or not, is my middle name.
Okay.
My
Okay.
last name is actually Clark. It's Scott Clark.
That's all right.
Scotty Lindsay is like my username on everything. So that's where it was on my email address and my gamer tags and all my video games.
Right.
It's just been like a nickname for forever. But yeah, just want to make sure that was clear.
Okay, not a problem. I
Thanks for,
stand corrected, as we see in the military.
thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Shane Wayne couldn't join us.
Yeah.
But
Unfortunately, my partner in crime, Wayne, he's the host of Packers Fan Podcast, and he lives out in California. And if you're aware, there's a whole bunch of crazy things happening out there weather-wise. High winds. He's not affected by the wildfires themselves, but the winds are high enough that the city has decided to shut off electricity. I don't fully understand why, but clearly he's not able to join us live tonight. He was supposed to be. So you guys are stuck with me.
Hey, that's a good thing.
we appreciate you coming on to chop it up with us.
Absolutely.
4 days away, and we're back from we started week 1. Here we are.
Yeah, this time not in Brazil. That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Big
Okay,
time.
well let's get right into this thing. Packers coming in here to Philadelphia, and a lot of times we would say, let's say if it was Tampa Bay, that well they can't play up here in this cold weather, but that's not the case for the Packers, huh?
No, they're good. They're good cold weather. They're actually stronger in cold weather.
Mhm.
Anytime we get those southern teams that come up, it always feels like we got an advantage when we're playing them at Lambeau. So
Right.
I say we like I'm on the field. Yeah.
Hey, we're the 12th man. Seattle could call them. We were the 12th man in Veterans Stadium. Long before. So, Scott, just want to ask you, will Jordan Mudd be playing this week, or is it still up in the air?
As far as I'm concerned, it's still up in the air. I haven't read today, but the quote unquote injury he received, I don't know how serious it is. They're describing it as an elbow injury, even though he was kind of gripping his hand. If you saw the game,
Mhm.
Right.
It really looked like when you hit your funny bone.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes it all tingly, and you just kind of get feeling back into it.
Right.
It seemed like an extreme version of that, but I have
Mhm.
not seen the dope sheet to see if he'll be playing. But I will be shocked if they don't, considering what
Yeah.
they've done with Christian Watson, what they've done with Jair Alexander, keeping those guys on the field or putting them on the field too early. I will be shocked if Jordan Love is not playing, but I do not have an official report myself.
Yeah, normally today's Wednesday is when most teams go on the field, so probably about the end of today. And same here with Jalen.
I was going to
Even
ask, that was my question, is Jalen
Yeah,
Hurts going to be playing?
even though he was on the field today,
Hmm.
but the difference with him, by him still being in protocol, you have to practice one day, and then the following day, that's when the powers to be makes a decision whether or not you're out of protocol. So it may be tomorrow before we get the official announcement that he is out, but here again, more than likely he will be out.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident he will be, but no offense, wishful thinking was that he wasn't going to be.
Yeah,
You know
I
what I'm
know.
saying? Something happened with Saquon Barkley, because that would really help me out.
Right.
well, now I can help us out.
All right.
Okay, now I am the bus driver for the Eagles, and I bring all the visiting team in. So
Oh,
I will have the Packers when they come in Saturday. So be careful how you talk to me right now, okay?
all right. I'll do my best, man. Give me a Kenny Clark signature while you're there, will you?
I got you.
We actually had him as a guest on the Packers Fan Podcast for an
Okay.
episode. That was
Nice.
surreal. He's been Clark being my last name.
Mhm.
It
Right.
was kind of inevitable, but that's the jersey I'm wearing. Been
Okay,
wearing
okay.
it for years.
Coincidental, there was a Kenny Clark that played on the 80 Eagles, played defensive tackle or defensive end.
Okay.
We're number 71.
Nice. It's a good name. I'll stick with it.
Well, actually, speaking of Clark, I got a good memory of a Clark. I was born and raised on Clark Street in Greenville, North Carolina.
There you go.
Clark
so
Kent.
it's Clark all around the place. There.
Superman.
Oh, you guys have no idea. There are businesses all over the country that are Scott Clark. There's a Scott Clark Toyota in, I want to say, North Carolina. There's a Scott Clark insurance agency up here in Wisconsin, like near Janesville. And I think in not Mukwonago, like Oconomowoc or something, there's a Culver's that is managed by a Scott Clark. It's all over the website. So people see my name everywhere. Apparently, it's a popular name. I have yet to meet another one.
That's why you own the team, right?
Yeah, I do actually. I am part owner of the Green Bay Packers.
Do you have a stock in the Packers?
I do, yes. We've got to hang it up proudly in our basement. So
wow,
good.
Wish the Eagles would do something like that.
The only team like that where the fans own the team. Is that correct?
I mean, it's kind of a cool feeling, and going to Green Bay, it really feels like going home, even though I've never lived there.
Right.
Yeah, it's a very cool place, and I've even had friends who are not Packers fans, like Bears fans or Niners fans or other teams that we go see games together, and they just say that they feel very welcome there.
I was there in 2019, right before the pandemic, when the Eagles and the Packers played on a Thursday night. Great, amazing town. Just everybody's friendly. The whole town shuts down.
Oh yeah, it's great, and tailgating is a thing.
Oh yeah.
It's awesome. It's one of those things you can't really do in Chicago. I've been to Soldier Field, and it's just walk to the stadium, and that's pretty much it. So
it's just the ambiance of Lambeau's. If anybody, everybody watch and check it out. I mean, put it on a bucket list. That is, the frozen tundra that did the tour before that they have, with all the right by the where all the souvenirs are sold. Like they have like the timeline. It's pretty nice.
Lots of history there. Yeah. I've done the tour a couple times actually. Just saying, I feel like I learned something new each time, and got to go up the top, stand right next to that massive G that's up on top of Lambeau. And my wife and I are actually attempting to visit every NFL stadium before we die. And we're only like 5 or 6 in at this point, but we always go to the pro shop and get a shot glass from that stadium, and we've got them lined up on our bar of like the ones we've been to. So
I do that myself.
My high school football coach used to play for the Packers back in the 60s.
Nice.
Yeah, he was I think a lineman. His name was James Burrington. Big guy. At that time, when you small, you see somebody that big, you think he's the biggest man in the world.
I hear you.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the quarterbacks. You guys got Jordan Love. We don't know whether he's going to be there or not, but he's had, what, in your opinion, what kind of season has he had?
I think you're talking Jordan Love, you said, right?
Yes.
In my opinion, Jordan Love has had a definite better second half of the season than he did the first half of the season. The interceptions were definitely a massive part of the first part. He cleaned that up in even the last 2 losses we had against Minnesota and Chicago. He hasn't thrown an interception in like 7 weeks. And so that's been a huge improvement. There's lots of questions leading up to, this season as to whether or not he was the guy. Because Green Bay's been pretty lucky on the quarterback front, coming with, Brett Favre and then Aaron Rodgers and now Jordan Love. While he hasn't reached that caliber yet, he definitely has that potential. And I have believed since even the season began that, he is the guy. My favorite thing about Jordan Love is, and this sounds weird to say, but his lack of emotion. As much as I love to see Brett charging down the field with his helmet raised in the air, and Aaron Rodgers just kind of barking orders and being goofy after games and press conferences, there's something that I appreciate about how stoic he is on the sidelines. He is so focused on what's going on and more concerned about watching the game and looking at the plays and talking to players and he's just focused. He's not goofing around. He's not there for fun. He's there to do his job. And that's just such a difference that I'm not used to, but I really appreciate it.
Now you need to be a Philadelphia Eagles fan, because here in this city we have the opposite. Jalen Hurt is the same way, no nonsense, and everybody dogs him. Oh, he got no emotion out there. He's not running up and down the bench or wide with the guys. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, I'd love to join you, but it's a wrong shade of green, man. Sorry.
It's almost close. Cheese heads, cheesesteak heads.
There you go.
Philadelphia cream cheese.
Cheesesteaks.
I honestly, excuse me. I think this game is going to be won in the trenches, because you got two great offensive lines, two defensive lines that are, stacked to the max, and it's Josh Jacobs. He was top 5 running back. I mean, he's up there with, he's not up there with Barkley and Derrick Henry, but that was a big acquisition by the Packers in the offseason.
Well, and Barkley was as well. I mean, that's 2 running backs on opposing teams that picked up a new running back from teams that, why did they let them go? I'm sure New York is going, what in the world did we do at this point? I think you're absolutely right. This is going to be, I think majority is going to be a running game. It's just going to be attack on the ground on both sides of the ball. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. It really is going to be interesting.
It's definitely going to be a chess match between Kellen Moore and the defensive coordinator on the Packers, and Vic Fangio and Matt LaFleur.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
hopefully the play calling is going to be a little bit better. It was a little sketchy last week.
Well, that's another thing we had here too. Play calling. Anyway, the running backs, like you said, Jacobs, he had 1,329 yards with 301 attempts, 15 TDs, and Barkley, as everybody know, 2,005 yards with 345. So that's another reason why, like Mike said, it's going to come in the trenches, because these 2 running backs both, they got to have that support up front, and I think it's going to make for an amazing game.
I agree, and although it is going to be in the trenches, I think the dangerous thing for the Packers is going to be the one-on-one matchups on the in the secondary. Mm-hmm. You guys are familiar with Xavier McKinney. He had his 8th interception against the Bears, which was awesome, even though we lost the game. It's the first time he caught an interception since that 7-game streak where he had an interception every game. He's going to be key for this game for us, I believe, because I think those one-on-one matchups are going to be the weakness for the Packers secondary. So he can't double team everybody, right? Or whatever safety's in there. So if we've got a shot, we've got to contain those matchups as much as possible. But that's something you say about every game, right?
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Mike, go ahead.
Oh, as you're mentioning about not Xavier McKinney, Jair Alexander. He got Keyshawn Nixon going up against, A.J. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Can you touch on what kind of defensive back Nixon is? I mean, as far as compared to Jair Alexander.
I mean, I think in general, the Packers team this year, and I think this is pretty common knowledge, there's not, outside of Jacobs and Love, there's not star players on either side of the ball. And that sounds like a negative thing to say about a team like the Packers, but the fact is that they're the youngest team in the league by far. And I think because of that, it makes each player very vital and just as valuable as the next. With that said, Alexander's got a little bit more experience, right? He's been around a little bit longer, but Nixon is right there. I think he's a solid player on the defensive side of the ball. I wouldn't even go as far as to say Alexander is better or more valuable. I think they're all equally valuable. And that's one of the things that the Packers have going for them, despite their youth, is that they've got a lot of strong young players, and I think that'll really go a long way for them.
I mean, as far as the Packers tight ends, Ben Simmons, Tucker Kraft, and getting what's his name back, Luke
Musgrave.
I mean, you could play 13 personnel there.
Mm-hmm.
It could give us Eagles team fits, but the thing of it is the Eagles defense shutting down. Sorry, I'm fighting a cold, so
that's okay, man.
Shutting down Josh Jacobs and really, defensive ends just pressuring that line, to get to Jordan Love before he can get that ball out quick.
Yeah, that's always been a thing that I've loved about the Packers is that, and post Aaron Rodgers era is we don't have that one target that he's always going for. Rodgers was always going after Devontae Adams, which, hey, I get it. He's awesome. He's still doing pretty well, even though that team is not. But I anything that keeps a defense guessing on an offensive play, whether it be a running play or whether it be a passing play, is a good thing in my book, because you never know who's going to throw to. The ball is spread out so many different directions that the defense doesn't know who to double team. That's one of the strengths I think that Green Bay has for them, is that they may not have those star players that we had under Rodgers outside of Jacobs. Jacobs is clearly our star running back, right? Wilson's doing a good job, but Jacobs is just doing the majority of the work. But in terms of the passing game, you never know who he's going to throw to. He's got so many options, and when those players become more seasoned, I really feel like it's going to be deadly in the coming years.
Oh, besides,
now with Christian Watson being out, who would be his replacement, and how far of a drop off is there, if there's any drop off?
Well, the thing with Christian Watson, I like him as a player, but he's been Mr. Glass this season. Yeah, he's just so. I mean, I know this was a different knee than it was the other one, and this is a non-impact injury, but I don't even know if I would call Watson our star wide receiver in this case. He's made some clutch plays, but it was never a consistent thing. He just made ones that were important at important times. Lots of really good third down connections, deep balls, which don't get me started on how much we go for deep balls on third down. That's a whole issue I could spend the whole podcast talking about. But again, same kind of thing. The next go-to is probably like a Wicks. He's really solid, but again, I wouldn't say it's that much of a drop off. It's just it's just about which one's going to get open, and if you've got that many wideouts going out and one of them gets open, it's going to be dangerous.
Well, Jaden Reed had 130 some yards against the Eagles week 1.
Oh yeah, I mean Reed is I probably should have said Reed over Wicks, but yeah.
I mean, you got Dontavian Wicks, Malik Heath, Bo Melton coming off the bench. So, there's a slew of receivers you could spread that ball around.
Yeah, it's just that again, with all those players you mentioned, they're making clutch plays, but they're not making. And I think that's one of the Packers' detriment, is that they're not focusing on moving the chains. They're focusing on pulling a Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers and going for those deep shots, which Love can throw the ball. Don't get me wrong. But this team needs a little bit more experience before taking those shots. Just move the chains, guys. That's the most important thing. Fundamental football.
Well, just going up against Eagles, secondary between Quinyon Mitchell, big play Slay, and Cooper DeJean. I think it's going to be a pretty physical matchup there.
I agree. I think this clearly the Eagles were favored in this game, but I think this has the potential to be one of the better matchups in the wild card round. I mean, wild card football is seriously one of my favorite times of year. Don't get me wrong. Love the NFC, AFC championship games and the Super Bowl, but wild card is great because you got the one team that, oh man, we got to play the wild card team, but you got the wild card team that is like, this is our last shot to get in. We barely squeaked in. We got something to prove. it feels like historically wild card games are just the most fun to watch.
Definitely.
Now,
Just the whole
especially
playoff.
this game with let's go back to a comparison. Last year, the Green Bay Packers Wildcard played a number 2 seed in the Dallas Cowboys, NFC East champion. They go in there and beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the same thing this year. The Green Bay Packers Wildcard playing the number 2 seed in the Philadelphia Eagles. Hopefully, we have some different results this year.
Well, I mean, I'm going to disagree with you there, but
Of course.
yeah, it's what's also interesting is that we played week 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means our first and last game for one of us of the season is going to be against the same team.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of a fun. How often do you see that happen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Win or go home.
Exactly.
It's the mentality.
I'm curious about how you guys felt about the turf at Brazil in week 1. It was a big complaint for us with the footing and watching those guys slip and slide. Do you think that was a factor as much as we did, or was that just us being whiny?
No, I think it was because, I watched the game, and then when the players came back, like I said, I picked them up, and that was the first time that I've ever heard players talk about a game on the bus, because normally they put their headphones on, they in their world.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody was talking about that turf, how slippery it was, and even after a couple had changed their cleats and stuff. So I get the impression that it was a bad turf.
Okay.
Bad turf.
And I'm also curious how you guys feel in general about this whole going abroad thing. I mean, London has been a thing for years, right? And I kind of get that, but now they're wanting to expand their horizons. And clearly, football is more popular in these other countries than football, right? So a lot of these games are going to be played on football pitches instead of football fields.
Right.
I don't like it, man. And I don't expect them to tear up that entire thing and have grass or artificial turf or anything like that
For 1 or 2 games a year. Absolutely, they're not going to do that.
Yeah, and I don't really get the draw. Like, is that drawing in a big enough audience or a big enough money for the NFL? I don't know. I'm not saying I don't want only Americans to watch football or anything like that. I would love for more people. And we got a lot of listeners from overseas. You know what I mean? There's a good love for it, but it just especially when you got a team that's their home game. You know what I mean? They're not playing at home. Their home game, like, what advantage do they get for there? There's a huge advantage to play in your home stadium.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Go
ahead, Mike.
I was just going to change gears a little bit, compare Brazil to like when the Eagles played in Arizona at the Super Bowl. I mean, was there a comparison there as far as the field being slippery as it was in Brazil?
Well, that's turf, right? I don't remember Arizona's.
Nah, it's grass.
They
have a retractable dome where they.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Any comparison to that, El?
Well, I haven't heard any complaints over the years about the Arizona field, but maybe because of this being Brazil and the field was so bad, that's why you hear so much about it nowadays. The only team that I've had complaints about over the years, and that was, the vet. I've never heard anybody talk about a field as much as they talk about the vet.
Right.
But we don't have that now, so I really haven't heard a whole lot about Arizona.
Not to go off the rails, but I mean, they say MetLife Stadium up in North Jersey is horrible. I mean, look what Aaron Rodgers, 4 plays in the home opener last year against Buffalo and tearing his Achilles. They say that's like the worst.
Randy Cunningham got injured at years ago as well. Well, of course, it was the other stadium, but pretty much the same field.
Right. Interesting.
Okay. Now, Scott.
Yes, sir.
In your opinion, we played at the first of the year, first game. We're playing again this weekend. How different are both teams than from that first game to now?
That's a great question. I will say I'm going to start with the Eagles. I think that the Eagles are stronger than they were in week one.
Mhm.
Saquon Barkley has been a dominant force on the ground for you guys, and I just feel like they are gelling much more than even Green Bay has. Green Bay is gelling, but they're gelling in a different way. They're gelling in a we're a young team kind of way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Love that they're in the playoffs. Um, it would be such a great kind of Cinderella story to see them
Right.
go, with the youngest team in the league. Has that ever happened? The youngest team making it to the Super Bowl or even to the NFC Championship or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, I think that they're still in that growing phase because they're so young, but and they've learned from their mistakes. Not all of them, clearly. I still have some issues with play calling, some just questionable decisions, and the penalties. The penalties have just been destroying us. I don't know if you guys watched the Chicago game. All we had, the Bears even had penalties against them, and they still wound up getting that field goal at the end. But
Mhm.
keeping the laundry off the field is a big issue. I think it's gotten better, but it's still far from perfect.
Right.
I think there's still lots of room for growth, but Philadelphia is just looking like very dominant.
Well, the thing of it is, I mean, it's a lot of people don't really bring this up, but all right, you could throw the statistics out the window now, new season, but the Eagles, I'll say this: the Eagles have had the number one defense in the league not since 1991.
Hmm.
And with Barkley, the running game, the defense carried this team where Jalen Hurts, his stats were just, down a lot. The Eagles were, almost probably in the bottom five of passing, but, it's, I think just the running game, just overshadows that. But,
Hmm.
it's just getting Jalen Hurts back, let him shake off the rust. And, it's a dual threat, not just Saquon Barkley. I mean, having Jalen Hurts in there is a weapon too, because you don't know what defense is going to, is it going to be Hurts running the ball? Is it going to be Barkley? So it's a dual threat with the running game.
Hmm. Absolutely. I and that's what's going to be so much fun to watch. As you guys know, being a Packers fan, we have been a passing team for what feels like the past 30 years, right? We've
Mhm.
never been focused on a running game. This is the first time that in as long as I can remember that we've been a running team. Like we've got a
Right.
solid running. Now, don't get me wrong. Aaron Jones was awesome. Eddie Lacy back in the day, great running backs, but Josh Jacobs came in with a little experience and really became the dominant force for our offense for the majority of this season.
Right.
But like you're talking, Jordan Love also had similar. I would say Jordan Love had probably more success than Jalen Hurts on the passing game. So we had a little
Right.
bit of the best of both worlds there. But at the beginning of the season, he was definitely taking a lot of risks and making some poor decisions with throws. And he's learned from that and cleaned up with it, which is really good to see. My
Oh,
question for you is how do you feel going into this game, even though you're not necessarily relying on the passing game as much as the running game, with with him having to knock off the rust a little bit. That's an advantage that Love has is that he did have at least part of last game and the game the week before and weeks before, at least when Willis didn't have to cover for him. Are you worried at all about him coming back in with such an important game after being out for so long?
yeah, good.
Well, most of the Eagle Nation in this part is worried about it.
Hmm.
That's all the talk has been on the radio all day today.
Mhm.
Coach said, this guy's a athlete. He takes a lot of during this time that he was off. He took a lot of mental reps, and so he's banking on when he gets out there that the body has muscle memories.
Hmm.
And so, with all those mental reps, he can get out there and start slinging it again and get his rhythm. He knows the players, AJ. He knows Dallas Goddard. He knows Dante. And so between the mental reps, the muscle memories, and being the pro athlete that he shouldn't have a problem. Maybe half a quarter, but outside of that, like it's the old saying, just like riding a bike.
Yep.
You know.
Well, my take is, all right, I know it's two different injuries. 2 years ago, a lot of people forgot hurt his shoulder in the Bears game in Chicago when he got slammed down in the field out there. And, he had a couple weeks off. The Eagles had the bye week, first round. So he really didn't play until the divisional round. And that was just about almost 3 weeks to a month, probably around the same time what he's dealing with now. But, thing of it is with the Eagles, really, I mean, they all year they started out slow. So it's really no difference. I mean, they come out slow anyway in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
They step it up in the second quarter and the second half. They usually dominate for 12 out of the last 13 weeks. So, no, not really. I think he'll be fine once he gets in the rhythm.
Yeah.
Fair enough. My worry on our side is, we've got not only Love, but also our backup had a little bit of a bang up as well in this past game. So, what are we going to do if one or both of those guys go down against you guys in Philly? It's going to...
It'll be like the San Francisco game a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Now, let me, Mike said something a few minutes ago, and I want to ask you, Scott. Mike, you made the statement that, it's a new season, the stats out the window, it doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
What do you feel about that? How do you feel about that statement?
We actually had that conversation on our most recent episode. Everybody's 0-0. Everybody's 0-0 right now, right? Which is what playoffs is all about, and that's what makes playoffs so exciting.
Right.
The downside of that, the record doesn't matter, but the strength of the team still does.
Mm-hmm.
Those numbers don't matter, but the health of the players is important, and just how gelled you are, how experienced you are.
Mm-hmm.
Those things definitely matter, but it definitely also feels kind of cool to go into the playoffs with a clean slate every time. You know what I mean? Anything can happen any given Sunday, or in this case, any given Saturday. You know what I mean? That's what makes the playoffs so exciting, is because there's no sure bets, right?
Well, it's a one-game elimination. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're 14-3, 11-6, whatever. I mean, 14-3, you lose, God forbid, something. If the Eagles lose, the season's a failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about winning the Super Bowl. It's not coming in, being the runner-up in the Super Bowl. The season's a failure.
Yeah, it's not like baseball where you guys get like 3 more tries, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like the other sports where you play the best of 5 or the best of 7 in a series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one and done.
Winner go home. That's the mentality you gotta have.
It makes it so exciting, and that's what it's like it's our October, right? You know what I mean? Where things start getting super interesting, and even in the regular season, I don't watch every single game, right? I'll have it on in the background a lot of times. And granted, my fantasy football team keeps me engaged a little bit more with individual players and teams and defenses and things like that. But in playoff season, man, every game is exciting to watch, because you could be looking at the potential host or visitor of the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? And everybody is just got that hungry mentality of what you just said. We lose this, we're done. All the games we played up to this point are meaningless if we lose this one. You know what I mean? Like last week, we didn't have to win that game to stay in the playoffs. Would have been nice, especially since it was the Bears, and the Bears haven't won a game in 11 games or whatever, and they haven't beat us since like 2019. Definitely didn't want to lose that game, but at the end of the day, it really didn't matter in terms of seeding. We would have played you guys regardless, because can't rely on Dallas for anything.
That's for sure.
True. But you go back to last year, Green Bay didn't really get hot till they knocked Detroit off on Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Then they went on that run.
Exactly. They actually ended the season last year with a better record than they did this year.
Right.
I'm sorry. No. They had to win that last game last year. Excuse me.
To get in.
To get in, they had to win. Right. This year, they didn't. And that's kind of the debate among Packers fans right now is, did Green Bay go into this game not playing 100%? Because they sure didn't look like it. I don't know if you saw that kickoff return that Chicago had where they faked him out and thought that they were kicking to the right, and they actually kicked to the left, and then they ran. It looked like all of the special teams players were running at half speed. Drove me crazy, and it just kind of made me feel like you're not playing at 110%. Were they just counting on Washington to win that game?
Well, not just that particular game. If you look at the last 5 games, Green Bay only won 2 of the last 5. So they kind of going in somewhat of a slump. Whereas we lost 1 of the last 5, coming in on a little bit of a high note. So, going back to that question I just asked, I asked that for a specific reason. Even though the stats don't matter in a sense, but I'm looking at from the point they got those stats by the type of plays they was doing, the type of offense they had, and everything that I heard today, because this question was brought up several times about what's this going to be like? It's going to be different, and the coach said, no, it's not going to be any different, because we are not changing anything that we've done during the regular season, simply because it's the playoffs. So when you do that, that's when you lose yourself. So we're going to come in doing the same thing we've been doing. So in a sense, to me, that makes things matter, because whatever system you ran during the regular season, you're going to run the same thing during the off season. It's just the numbers don't matter anymore, but the stats matter because you running the same things you ran during the off season. What do you think about that?
Right, you want to run like an old machine, right? A well-oiled machine, but at the same time, Green Bay has been plagued in the past by injuries.
Okay.
Now, we've been pretty lucky this year. Now, granted, Christian Watson just went out, and we got both of our quarterbacks that potentially have issues, right? I went into the Chicago game with the mentality of, this game really doesn't matter. We're in the playoffs. That's the most important thing. And I would have rather rested the players and not risked the injury. Now, granted, Christian Watson, it was a non-impact injury. That probably would have happened if he was walking down the street or something like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But as soon as Jordan Love hit his elbow and then Willis had to step in, I was like, I told you guys, should have played Malik from the beginning. You know, maybe have Love do one series, and because we don't need to win this game. I wasn't counting on Dallas overtaking Washington. To me, health going into the playoffs is more important than what you're talking about. And not to downplay what you're saying. I think that's important as well. That consistency is also vitally important, but that consistency isn't going to do you any good if your players aren't healthy, especially your ones that are vitally important for the team.
So by you saying that, let's just hypothetically, you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan. You got Saquon Barkley.
Don't tell Wayne.
101 yards from breaking Eric Dickerson's record. So everything that you just said, you basically agree with the Nick Sirianni decision to not let him go for the record. Is that correct?
Absolutely. What's more important, the individual player or the team? I mean,
the team is, but at the same time, it's going to mean a whole lot to the player. It's going to mean a whole lot to the offensive line. It's really going to mean a whole lot to the city of Philadelphia. I mean, I understand it. I wasn't against it. But what's going to happen? Let's again, hypothetically, Green Bay knocks us out in the first round. What is the talk going to be around Philadelphia? Yeah, he didn't go for the record, and now you lost. You should. It's always something going on here.
I mean, putting myself in your shoes, if that's a situation, I'm not going to blame it on not letting him get a record. Because again, to me, football is a team sport. Love my individual players. I have my favorite players. I got their jerseys. If I'm a player, it's easy for me to say that on this side of the TV screen, right? Because I'm not a player, I'm not an athlete, I'm not hitting stats to make more money. I don't have these what bounties, or what do they call it? I feel like they're talking about that on the games nowadays. Like, oh, if he gets so many touchdowns this game, he's going to get an extra $500,000 and stuff. Right. They're talking about that more this season than before, right?
The last couple of weeks, especially.
Yeah.
Well, Mike Evans, not that. Mike Evans, I think got $2 million bonus for breaking that record, and then there was what was it, 10 or 11 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah.
Right.
Then there was another player that was supposed to get some type of bonus. But
yeah. Now, again, it's easy for me to say that on this side of the fandom, because I'm clearly more worried about a team than an individual player. But I would like to think that if I were in a player's shoes, out on the field, sure, I want to make more money, but long term, I'm going to make more money if my team makes it to the Super Bowl and wins the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? That is the ultimate goal. Am I here for the job? Am I just here to punch a time clock, do my time, get paid, and go home? Or am I here to fulfill the dream of winning the Super Bowl? Again, easy for me to say on this side of it, but that's how I feel about it. Like, what's more important, the team or the individual player stats?
Oh, I'll say this as an Eagles fan. I think Saquon Barkley, the humble, great person that he is, I think he deserved it. You could see I think he was a little disappointed. I mean, he said his family was, I think, more disappointed than he was. But the Giants basically screwed you. The Mara family, that video that came out. I know if I was Saquon Barkley, I would have just loved to break that record against him and just stick it to him. But
but let me give you another example of just the opposite of that, because I don't know if you watched the Jets. Who do they play? Miami.
Right.
Yeah. Miami game, right? Aaron Rodgers they've won 4 or 5 games this season.
4-12.
4-12. And he's out there laughing and joking and like, hey, isn't this great? And blah, blah, blah. And he throws his 500th touchdown pass. And that's all we heard about for the rest of the game was, look at how this thing is wrapped up, and he will not let that ball go, and this thing has got to be his, and that's so important, and I'm the god of football. And it was just all about Aaron Rodgers, the team that is got a pretty good draft pick coming next season, right? And all we're talking about is this is Aaron Rodgers' last game with the Jets, might be his last game of his career. And again, I know it sounds like I'm being a bitter Barry here because he was a Packer and he kind of left us and all that drama. But my point is, it just put a bad taste in my mouth seeing that's what he was worried about was his stats. He was worried about that 500 touchdown, and what was it? He wound up with 502 or 503 at the end. He was more worried about his legacy and what he was going to be leaving. There was no way he was going to walk away from that game without getting that 500 touchdown. That was his focus. And the fact that his team is 4-12 and he's just on the sidelines laughing and joking with everybody just really rubbed me the wrong way. Not to say Saquon's going to do that, right? He's in a different position than Rodgers, and I totally recognize that. But I would like to think that Barkley is going to be more of a team player and not worried about it. Would he have liked to have it? Yes.
Yeah. But the ultimate goal is the team, as you said, it's the team. Winning the titles and everything.
Yeah, he really is that type of person that it's important, but it's not. Prime example: a few games back, and sitting on the sideline, I guess he had got a lot of yards that day, and coach come up said, "Look, you got a chance of getting a record." He said, "No, let the guys go in there and eat. Let the guys go in there and eat." And even when he asked last week, he said, "No, I'm good with it." Later on, he thought about it, but he is a team player, so it may bother him for a little bit, but he's not that type of person that it's all about him. So I agree with you there.
As far as just to shift gears, I mean, you talk about Rodgers. What is the take? What is how can I word this? What is his legacy in Green Bay now with the fan base?
There's a lot of respect for the player. He is clearly one of the best, and was a huge fan of his. Still got his jerseys. I'm not going to get rid of them. I'm not one of those that was going to burn jerseys. But my opinion of him, just on a personal level, has definitely shifted, and not just because of the history with the Packers and how that ended, but just the smugness and the attitude, and he just feels very, very full of himself. Is it justified? Probably. Very much so justified. But I respect a player so much that is not only talented but also humble about it. And not that you can't have fun with it. I really, I don't know if you remember some of the post-game interviews that he used to do where he and Clay Matthews used to mess with each other, like in the background, and that kind of stuff was just hilarious, and I loved it. But I'm more excited about a Jordan Love that is taking it seriously and focusing on the football and not growing on ego. Now, I can't speak for the entire Packers fan base. This is all Scott Clark. This is not Packers fans in general. I would say the majority, there's a lot of Packers fans that are just like, forget Rodgers. Like, yeah, he did some good things for us, but there's been a lot of burnt bridges there. But there's also some people that are like, we should still have Rodgers in our team, and Gutekunst should have, made that happen. I disagree, especially after the Achilles injury. I mean, when Jordan Love got drafted, people were upset, like absolutely angry. Guys, this is what the Packers do with their quarterbacks. They don't do what the Chicago Bears do and draft a quarterback and then shove them into the game the first game of the season. They groom them behind the star quarterback, let him learn the system, and then get him going. That's what they were doing with Jordan Love. He sat on the bench behind Rodgers for a couple years, and for some reason, Rodgers was like hurt about that.
Oh,
didn't make any sense.
There was a Billy, one of the media folks, announced today or last night how you talk about since 1992, no, 91. You had three great, well, not great. Yeah, speaking of Favre and Rodgers, Jordan Love coming into his own, but you had 32 years of, that winning tradition in Green Bay, as far as Rodgers and Brett Favre. But just to have, that many, just 2-3 quarterbacks in that time, just that dominated the NFL.
Definitely a feather in our cap.
Just saying the legacy of three great quarterbacks. I mean, how many teams like the Bears have gone through a quarterback after Miami? Different teams that just can't find that diamond in the rough.
Yep. And they let go of Justin Fields. Like, what are you doing, man? I mean, Caleb Williams is a solid. I think Caleb Williams is a better quarterback than his stats show, especially with the sacks. That offensive line is making him look like way worse than he is. But with a good front seven there, he'd be amazing. He's a great athlete.
Okay, let's move on to the game a little bit more before our time runs out. When you're having fun, time passes. We've been at it 45 minutes already. Let's go to some of the matchups. Tell me what you think of the matchup between Jalen Reed and Cooper DeJean.
I'm not familiar with DeJean as much. I'm not gonna lie. I apologize. Okay. It's hard to keep track of all the players, so it's really difficult for me to compare. But Reed, he's solid. But again, like I feel like I'm repeating myself. But he is more of a clutch player. But again, that's because Love is spreading the ball so much. You know what I mean? We don't have that one guy he's going to. He's probably going to be the lead guy for this game, but the Packers historically do better when they keep the defense guessing, and I think that'll be the name of the game here. But again, the game's going to be more of a running game anyway. I think we both kind of We all three feel that way, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Eagles offense against the Packer defense. I know we talked about a little bit of everything, but your honest, heartfelt opinion, who has the upper hand and why?
I'm going to say the Eagles have the upper hand for sure. If nothing else, Saquon Barkley.
Mhm.
2,005 yards is nuts. It's absolutely nuts. The Packers defense is stout, but they're also young. They're. I mean, you got your Kenny Clark in there, obviously, and some other players, but um, they're a much younger defense than your offense is. I think the Eagles have the upper hand there. The star power. I mean, you can't argue against those numbers, man. He's just a beast. So yeah, the in terms of that, Eagles have the upper hand.
Jordan Love against the Eagles defense.
I'm going to say Jordan Love has the edge on this one, but I will say that they won't use it as much, or they shouldn't use it as much because it should be a running game. I think the lack of recent play that Hurts is going to have is going to be actually a help to the Packers a little bit. And despite the elbow injury, I don't feel like that's going to be a major thing for this game. I don't think that's going to be a detriment for them. So I'm going to say, Jordan Love's offense has a slight edge over the Eagles defense.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
I want to get into the kicking game because I hate to say it, the guy's been reliable for a number of years. Jake Elliott is just 1 for 7 for 50 yards or more. And since you guys picked up Brandon McManus, he's been 20 for 21. What was that week? I don't even know, but
I don't remember exactly when. I just know he missed one.
Well, I don't know what it is with, not only Jake Elliott, but it just seems like Justin Tucker, like what's going on with these guys. But Jake Elliott's just been shaky all year. Hopefully he'll get out of his funk, if the Eagles do need him to kick whatever, if the game's on the line. But, I'd say Jake Elliott right now is the Eagles' Achilles heel. If you really gotta, get down to the brass tacks.
I think the Packers got really lucky with McManus. He was a player that a lot of teams were kind of afraid to touch because of a lot of the personal stuff that's been going on and the allegations.
Exactly.
And Green Bay picked him up regardless, and it's just been clearly a great call for them. So
he had a great career in Denver, and actually he's a local kid from right outside of Philly.
Very, very happy with him. I feel like we've got Mason Crosby back again, even though he's not Mason Crosby. I missed the Silver Fox, though.
Right.
Okay, let's go to the coaching. LaFleur, Dariana.
Oh, man, you're going to make me talk smack about my own team some more. I love Coach LaFleur. I really do. I think he is what he's done with this young team is incredible. I get a little frustrated with some of the play calls, though. Just some of the decisions that are made, some of the going for it on fourth, some of the not taking the points has been a little like, look, we're not the Detroit Lions, guys. We don't need to keep making these risky things. We need to get back to fundamental football. So I'm going to give that one to you guys as well, just because I don't know which LaFleur we're going to get. It really feels like LaFleur struggles coaching 4 quarters of football. He's good at coaching 1 or 1.5, especially in the past weeks. Granted, we won 5 games before these 2 losses, but those were against teams that were not the Minnesota Vikings, you know what I mean, or the Detroit Lions. So, it's going to be interesting to see how he handles that. And I feel for the guy too, because I mean, a lot of Packers fans are calling for his head. I'm like, guys, he's been to the playoffs how many times since he started, and he's, a relatively young coach. But I'm going to give the Eagles the edge on the coaching side.
I don't know. Well, I'll say this. When LaFleur took over, what was it, 2 NFC championship games they lost, whatever it was, when Rodgers was there. But it's like with McCarthy. I thought it was Rodgers with McCarthy, but when LaFleur took over, I always thought it was, Rodgers just made him look good. But I think, not to take nothing away from Sirianni, and I probably might I think some Eagles fans will agree with me, but I think LaFleur is one of the better, maybe underrated coaches in the NFL.
I agree. And I think that the change to LaFleur was a big deal because, especially after Rodgers left,
Right.
it felt like after Rodgers left, LaFleur got to coach his team again. It really, and I don't know it for certain. It just felt like Rodgers was coaching the team as opposed to LaFleur coaching the team.
Mm-hmm.
So now under Jordan Love, it feels like he's back making the calls again. Again, some of them have been questionable calls,
Right.
but it still feels like things are right again.
Well, it's, when you said Jordan Love was drafted, I don't think Rodgers was too happy about it. It was the same thing like, Favre being the MVP that he was when Rodgers got drafted, and Rodgers sat for 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they, as you said, you didn't, you groom these quarterbacks along where, where Chicago just throws these guys right in the fire
Mm-hmm.
and don't develop the quarterbacks, like I said, for 32 years with the legacy.
Yep.
Okay, guys, we got about 8 minutes left. I don't know how to ask this particular question because it's a non-factor, I guess. But I went with the coaches. I went with the offense. Where I'm going at now is the ownership. Whereas we have a owner, well, many, but Jeffrey Lurie. I've been knowing him over 20-some years, and as far as the Packers situation is, in light of not a single owner, but a conglomerate of people, who gets the praise or who gets the trash talking when a team is not doing well when it comes to the fans?
It depends on what's going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know, we say we're owned by the fans, but I mean, that stock certificate I have is not really stock, guys. That was basically a donation to the Packers organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, we get voting for some stuff, but we're not making calls or, anything like that. If you remember back in the Joe Barry days, the defense is doing bad. Joe Barry is the problem. The play calling is bad right now. LaFleur is the problem. When Rodgers was getting the big ego, he's the problem. You know what I mean? It depends on what the situation is. Or whenever the draft is, it's the front office that, Gutekunst is making poor decisions, and then, oh, what do you know? It turned out pretty good. Maybe he is not the problem, but I feel like you're never going to have a draft where any team is happy with their drafts. It's like,
right.
It's horrible picks, and then they wind up being stars. So, they clearly know what they're doing better than we do.
Okay, I got the message. Mike, we need to close this down.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much for coming
on.
Hey, thank you very much. Do you guys have any Packers fans listening ever, or is it just all Eagles fans?
Sometimes, they'll pop up in my chat. I think the last time that we had Wayne on, we had a couple of people to pop up that was Packer fans, but for the most part, we don't allow them here. No,
well, I appreciate you making an exception.
Absolutely. So, again, thank you for your time, for your insight, and it was a pleasure meeting you. And hopefully everything is okay with Wayne. So, again, appreciate you so much there.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. This
Thanks, Scott.
At the 50 with Fuji and Fleet, and our guest today was Scott Lindsay Clark. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Have a good one.
Hey, you too, man. Good to see you again. I know I met you in the past. We did this a couple years ago, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Alice, nice to meet you, man.
All right, you as well, Scott.
I'm jealous of your job, man. That would be cool to be able to drive each team. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely, man. Been doing it for years, and I've got a good relationship with Green Bay.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me, guys. I got a jet.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you much, Jeff.
Catch you later.
Go on.
You too. Bye.
Go Birds.
All right. Yeah, I had got a message from Scott, and wife was getting upset. She's hey, it's time for you to come to dinner, man.
Okay.
But okay, that was great, and hopefully we'll get to talk to Wayne again. I'm gonna send him a couple of messages tonight and tomorrow and make sure he's okay there.
Yeah. Just thank God.
Well, again, I'm gonna put out some shorts on these later on tonight. So they have been doing pretty well. So I'm looking forward to putting out more clips on it.
All right.
All right.
Good. Yes,
All
sir.
right, Mike. I'm gonna end this stream here. And
All right.
you feel better, man. Get you some rest tonight, all right?
Yeah, I am definitely just going to eat.
All right,
Go to bed. Have a good one. Be
all
safe.
right, you as well, man. All right.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.